A lot of baseball, 6 games over 3 days, but that wasn't all that was going on campus. Lots and lots of high-profile football recruiting visitors were in Baton Rouge over the weekend. To detail it all, we bring in our guy Sonny Shipp from 24/7 Sports. Sonny, how are you, sir?
Doing good, man. How about you, brother?
Well, I'd have been better if LSU had won a baseball game last night, and I'll be fine if they win one tonight. But as of right now, I'm a little testy, a little nervous. That's how.
I mean, it's just, if you're gonna lose, don't make me stay up till after midnight.
My wife,
and for you guys who are actually having to be there, rolling into the house at 3:00 in the morning after taking an L like that. I mean, whew.
My wife is not
I feel
thrilled.
for you, brother.
My wife's not thrilled with the time that I've arrived home the last 3 nights. That's not in her wheelhouse, but she gets another one tonight, so here we are. Bath time's on her this evening. All right, let's talk some recruiting and some visitors. I think the highest profile name is Bowe Bentley. Saw a picture of he and Garrett Nussmeier up in Tiger Stadium. Just kind of give us a breakdown of who he is and where that whole thing stands.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at recruiting boards and what LSU's what their needs are and who their top targets are, I mean, every class needs a quarterback. Bowe Bentley, the number 7 quarterback in the country, 6'2", about 205. A dual threat dude, though. He ran for over just under 1,000 yards at Salina, Texas last year, threw for over 3,500, and just scored responsible for a lot of touchdowns. And getting him in town on the first weekend like this, especially coming on the heels of your competition for him is Oklahoma. He goes there next weekend, so you get the first crack to impress him. And from all accounts, Joe Sloan and the staff, blew it out of the park. They feel LSU was in a good spot going into this visit. The 24/7 Sports staff placed a crystal ball pick on LSU with him, and I think a confidence level 6 out of 10, if I'm not mistaken, which is about average, about par for the course. But and so you're able to just kind of build on the momentum that you kind of had going into the visit. And so considering where he is and how prominent of a prospect he is on the board, you got to really feel good about where you sit right now coming off of the weekend.
It's weird that LSU has kind of become this destination for quarterbacks over the course of the last 10 years. I realize the way things went at the end with Bryce Underwood, I'm not blaming Joe Sloan and Brian Kelly for that one bit. And now they're right back in the mix for another really high-profile quarterback, and then, of course, a couple in the years to follow. Can you kind of speak to Joe Sloan, Brian Kelly, and how they've been able to recruit quarterbacks? I would even toss Michael Van Buren out of the transfer portal in that mix.
Yeah, and I mean, look, you start with Jaden Daniels, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you bring Jaden Daniels in on your, so early in the process. You get him when you get to town, but Bryce Underwood, you had that situation that he did. But I go back and I look at all the top quarterbacks that Joe Sloan brings into camps, that he gets on campus on unofficial visits. I mean, there was a time, like you said, go back to 2014, man. You remember the quarterback situation then?
Yeah.
Probably the second least most dire situation back to when you have to go back to the early 90s when you had Saul Graves, Chad Loop, and Jesse Daigle, And so to see how far the recruiting has come in just 10 years, you got Joe Burrow, you got Jaden Daniels, you got 2 Heisman Trophy quarterbacks right there. And then you fast forward and you look ahead to 2027, 2028. And I think Joe Sloan is just relentless on the trail. And having the history that LSU has had of the recent success of Burrow and Daniels obviously helps. But I think Joe Sloan is a huge part of why he's got LSU in the picture of so many prominent quarterbacks.
Let's move away from quarterbacks. A couple names here that I wanted to mention were Calvin Russell and Jaden Crimpton. Can you tell us about those two and how their weekends apparently went?
Yeah, LSU, you look at the wide receiver position, you got Jabari Mack, you got Tristan Keys, number 1 wideout in the country. You got Kenny Darby, who visited Alabama over the weekend, made a few headlines with I'm going to make my final decision in July, kind of thing. But, And so you don't really look at the wide receiver position and say, man, LSU is, LSU really, how many more spots do they have is what you think of. But Calvin Russell, 5-star, number 3 wideout in the country out of South Florida. Going into the visit, I think most people felt that, getting him out of the Sunshine State was going to be tough. I think now you're going to start seeing a lot more pro LSU talk coming out of the Russell camp. Some of that, I think some of that is obviously due to the tradition LSU has. You're building such a strong wide receiver class right here that they already have. But also, Cortez Hankton has just really, he's kind of locked in and zeroed in on a few guys in this class that, some people are kind of surprised that, oh, wow, LSU is as big of a player right here. Tristan Keys, everybody knew that LSU was in the mix, but he visits and then commits. And everybody's like, whoa, where did that come out of? No one had him on commit watch going into that unofficial visit to LSU. So, I think you really have to tip your hat to Cortez Hankton and the job that he's done recruiting that position in this cycle.
What about Zayden Crimpin?
Yeah, big offensive lineman out of Prosper, Texas. Will Campbell, I remember hearing a story about Will Campbell's agent is actually from the area and knows the Crimpin family and stuff. And so that's a little, I don't know how much that really comes into play here, but just a little, one little LSU connection. But he's a guy who visited Ohio State, visited a couple of other places, been to LSU several times. And I think when you look at offensive linemen and you start saying, okay, who is LSU going to add to go with Briston Martinez, to go with Jalen Chapman? I think Zayden Crimpin is now at the top of the list right there. Emmanuel Iheanacho is another five-star offensive lineman who was in town also this weekend. But looking at and trying to kind of forecast of who LSU has the best shot at that position, I think it lies with Crimpin right now.
Jamarian Carlton is also a name that I saw y'all said visited. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, big five-star defensive lineman out of Texas. He's actually got a commitment date already set, and so Calvin Russell does too. He's another one who's going to be committing right around July 4th in that time frame. But, Carlton and Trenton Henderson is another big five-star defensive end edge guy who was also on campus this weekend. And, those two guys right there, you've got Lamar Brown right there. When you look at the defensive end position, you say, okay, LSU just, you can't let Lamar Brown get out of the state. You already got, you got one of the best tackles in the country, Richard Anderson, in your backyard at Edna Carr. You've already got him on board. And if you can get those two at those two positions, and then you go out and then you bring another out-of-state guy in at that position. I mean, you're talking about some really elite level class that LSU can pull in, looking at the board that they have. And Henderson and Carlton are two guys at that defensive line / edge position that that fit that mold. Who, coming off of this weekend, I think you'll see LSU when they start saying, okay, here's my top five, here's my final four. I think you'll see LSU make a strong push into all of those cuts.
It's kind of remarkable to me in this first weekend how many five-star players LSU had on campus in this one class. Do you think that was among the best in the country? Is that fair to say?
Man, I tell you what, you had multiple, but I know Miami had Tristan Keys down there this weekend, and also Lamar Brown.
Okay.
So that's two five stars right there. But I think you could put this LSU visit list that was, I'm trying to pull it off the top of my head, I think a dozen deep. Since the one kid couldn't make it in. But, when you compare that visit list to other schools around the country, it's going to be hard to say, okay, I think this one right here looks more impressive.
What's your confidence level Tristan Keys sticks with his commitment when signing day comes?
I think when I say it has a Decorian Moore feel to it,
yeah.
I don't mean in the sense of him being, I guess, like as imminent maybe of a flip as we kind of started seeing the tea leaves, reading the tea leaves and getting those feels on Decorian Moore. I think Tristan Keys is going to be a little bit different of a situation because of, grew up an LSU fan right there in Hattiesburg. LSU's got some ties with some staff members to the area and to the school and stuff. And so, I do think it's going to be one of those situations to where it's going to go down to the end. He may stay committed the whole time, but there's not a doubt in my mind that once we hit December, we're going to be looking at another announcement date, if not before that.
It's just the way things go. I think everybody's
That's the way things are, man.
I think everybody's conditioned to it too. I don't think it shocks anybody when those things kind of happen. It just is what it is. We appreciate.
But I will say, hey, I will add this though. I think with LSU fans, I think if you look at where the football program is now and where the NIL force is right now compared to where it was a year ago at this time, when you had DeCorey and Moore, when you had Bryce Underwood, and you had some of those situations come up, LSU is in a much better situation to be able to address those issues, to be able to come with more better offers, higher offers, to be able to come with the things that they need to offset what the other schools are selling them. And so, while that's become the nature of the game, I think LSU fans should feel a lot better about where they are now as opposed to where they were just a year ago.
Yeah, just as long as Oracle doesn't get involved, I think LSU will be okay. But once Oracle shows up, you might be in some trouble. Yeah,
Jerry Jones. Look, if Jerry Jones wants a guy, to go to Arkansas, come on, how you gonna beat that? Come on, unless Todd Graves sees a quarterback that he wants to see at LSU,
Chicken versus oil and gas and the Cowboys, beautiful thing. Sonny, we appreciate some time, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, brother. Have a good one, man.
You too. Me is Sonny Shipp, 24/7 Sports, all over the recruiting. If you're looking for coverage, go 24/7. Great spot. Glenn West with us on Tuesday. He's been up at the box the last couple of days, and Sonny's all over the recruiting side. Big weekend for LSU as far as visitor goes, so I wanted to check in on that. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.